in order to play flamenco, you don't need to be necessarily a virtuoso, because if you learn the basic chords, you know the rhythm, you know the scale, you can play very simple sounding melodies, but if they're nicely played, that's absolutely flamenco.
Welcome to another episode of the Spanish Guitar Mastermind, where we take a look at the journey of accomplished Spanish guitarists and we break down their strategies, their mindset, and daily habits to figure out how they got to where they are today. We do this by learning from their success and their failures. Today, I'm very honored and privileged to have on the show one of my personal favorites, a phenomenal flamenco guitarist, El Amir. Now, one of the things that I love about El Amir and that makes him very unique is that his artistry spans across multiple genres and multiple instruments, as we're going to talk about. Now, some of his career highlights include working with renowned composer Hans Zimmer and recording for some blockbuster movie soundtracks. And as a performer, you can catch him touring internationally with his various endeavors, but one of his next prominent tours is going to be with Hans Zimmer and his whole experience coming up this fall. For now, let's welcome to the show El Amir.
Hey, hi David, how are you?
Hey Amir, how are you?
Very good. Thanks for having me and thanks for the invite.
It's a pleasure to have you on the show. Been following you for years, so it's going to be my special treat to hear a little bit about your journey.
Thank you. It's also an honor, to be here for your community. And, just let's roll it and just have fun and let's talk about great things.
Yeah, so just to start off, tell me a little bit about your origins and how you got into playing your first instrument, how your family life was. Did it nurture you to become this musician that you are today, or did you have to take it upon yourself?
Right. Well, once upon a time, I was born in Germany. I was born and raised in Germany. My family happened to live there. I have various backgrounds, Middle Eastern backgrounds, South American backgrounds, and my grandfather on my mom's side, he was from near Hamburg, north of Germany. So I'm a little bit, like crossover. I was exposed at my home. My dad, he used to play he still plays the Arabic oud. And with that came all the Middle Eastern and Mediterranean flavor. And my mom being from Colombia, and all the vallenato and the salsa and the South American folklore, basically. And my dad also was very fond of classical music. He knew by heart like all of the big compositions, because one of his childhood dream, was to become a conductor, but that never happened. So he went into science. But that's another story. But so we had this type of music, these three genres, very prominent. And my dad discovered very early flamenco music, because he thought that this music was very, very close and related to what he had, in his own culture in the Middle East. The singing and the scales and the sound. So I ended up, hearing all those music styles, and especially the flamenco. That was like a big thing at our house. And my dad ended up playing also flamenco guitar. So he started to take lessons and books and things like that. And I would sneak in and always watch him play. And whenever he would leave his oud or the guitar on the sofa in the living room, I would just go there, maybe it was 4 or 5, whatever, just grab the instruments and just look at it, touch it, go like this. And so these were my first influences, and my mom is also, she never was an artist, but she had a very, very, very natural way of engaging with her folklore. And so she had a very vivid relationship with music too. And one day, that's my father tells me this. One day he saw me grabbing the guitar and grabbing 2 or 3 chords, but no one had showed me. It's all I've been just copying my dad somehow. And then he's like, "Oh, you want to learn?" And I'm like, "Yeah, And I was was it like 6 or 7? So my father first taught me flamenco. We were going right into flamenco. Of course, the oud was also there always. And he would play, I would kind of copy. And there's still some pictures of that time. Unfortunately, no videos, but some pictures where you can see me sitting in front of my dad, kneeling down, watching him play, and he has the guitar in the hand. And that's how those classes at home would go. Basically, he would play something, he would show it to me. He would pass me the guitar. We only had one guitar at first. and I would kind of copy that. So that became a game, and as soon as we figured that I had a real interest, then he said, "Do you want to go and have some further classes with my teacher?" And so both we ended up, like my dad and me would end up going to his teacher's classes once a week, and that got me started. So I really was exposed to the flamenco music since a little boy without having been born in Andalusia in Spain. And I think that was a very, very important impact for my future career, that which I didn't know would ever happen right at the time. And so that went on, you know, a couple of years, and then I just became a little better and better. I really was dwelling deeper into the flamenco music and the basics and the fundamentals and the techniques, the rhythms, the harmonies, really traditional stuff at first. And well, these were my beginnings. But the thing is, since I was born in Germany, I was exposed, through all the music, of course, in the radio and, out on the street. So I was listening to pop music, to jazz, to funk, rock. And I remember, because you mentioned the electric guitar, I remember one of my neighborhood friends, one of my good buddies at the time, we were 12, and his older brother, he was 16. And he gave us, we would always hang out. So he gave us a cassette. On one side, there was Kill 'Em All by Metallica, and on the other side, there was Ride the Lightning. So those two first albums. And I remember listening to that music for the first time. I hadn't heard metal yet. The thing is, what people have to understand in my case, coming from a background where both parents had, their musical identity and cultural identity, they've never gone through listening to the Beatles or Jimi Hendrix or Led Zeppelin or none of that, because that wasn't part of their culture, right? So I've
Right.
never had access to that music. So when I heard metal for the first time, I was like, wow, that's so powerful. But I didn't know how that sound was created. So you have to imagine little Amir sitting at home with his flamenco guitar and island string, trying to squeeze in some very thin layers of like plastic sheets in between the strings to try to make them buzz. But I never achieved the sound that I was listening on those records. I'm like, there's something going on, and I didn't know. And then soon enough, I discovered on a heavy metal magazine somewhere. I said, "Oh wow, these the guys, with the long hairs and those crazy looking guitars. That's the sound. That's where it comes from." So that's when I connected with the electric guitar. And about a year later, around 13, I think someone sold me his secondhand guitar, and I still have it. It's here. It's great. I recovered it after 30 years. So it's amazing to have your first electric. And then it just, I got myself an amp, and then we're playing with bands and, in my school bands and things like that. And that's how the whole thing started to shape, my flamenco and the oud thing, the world music stuff. And then that kind of element came into, and that was in my teens. So that is a little bit the first approach of music, right?
So just to get it clear, you were already playing a little bit of the oud before you hit the flamenco guitar, right?
Yeah, probably the oud was the first instrument I've ever heard.
Okay.
I probably was in my mother's belly, and my dad would probably sit in the living room playing. So the oud was the first instrument, and then came the flamenco guitar through all the records that my dad would listen to, and then when he played at home. So I think both of those instruments are like the core of what I've been all these years, musically speaking, and what was given to me by my family environment. Then the electric guitar, I have to admit, was my own choice. So
Hmm.
I always say it, my real fetish is the electric guitar, because that is the instrument that I consciously chose to play.
When you got into electric guitar, did you just drop the flamenco for some time and kind of have your electric phase where you really dug into all the logistics and the techniques and everything, or were you able to kind of balance that out for some time?
Well, my dad at first, when he saw that I would, just every day grab the electric, And he was a little bit concerned. He said, "Well, will you drop the flamenco now?" And I'm like, "No, no, I just need it all at once. I just need that kick, and I need that emotion. I need that sound." Because I figured, since I was brought up with two different instruments, the flamenco guitar being finger picking, the oud being with a pick, so I had those both techniques, and I immediately understood that each instrument and each music style had its own identity, its own emotion, its own way of expressing and things like that. So when I incorporated the electric guitar, it was just a matter of adding more options to my way of being able to express things. And then my limitations, I wasn't limited anymore. You know, of course, limitations are only so far as you imagine your limitations. But being a flamenco guitarist is a limitation in itself. Being a oud player with all the liberty you got, but still. So what I liked is I'm really happy that I figured that out when I was pretty young, because I said that's all complementary. It's great, and I just want it all, and it was a great feeling. So I could always grab and switch from one instrument to the other very easily. Because of that technique, I already had the pick thing. I just needed to adapt, to play with the smaller picks and just adapt the technique a little. And then, as a
Right.
kid, I had a lot of time and would just play and play and play. And it was like a game. It wasn't really like serious practice hours where you sit down and my dad just told me you have to practice. No, it was all a game, because my dad had a love for music and for the instrument. It was never about showing off and showing someone else how good you are. It was about connecting with your identity, with the culture, with the music, and with the instrument. And I think that helped me, because if someone would have forced me to do something back then, I would have never been such a happy musician, in the sense of, I've never felt any, like, oh, that time was horrible. Like many people, you encounter many people say, oh yeah, they made me play the violin and I ended up hating it. So that never happened, because it was a game. And when you're kids, you're playing, kids play. So it was all just, growing up and incorporate more information and play and listen to albums, try to play repertoires, try to play solos. And in the case of the electric guitar, my first electric reference was Kirk Hammett, because I heard, just happened to be like that, to hear Metallica for
Mhm.
the first time. So that style, that speedy style, was something that my first reference. So of course I tried to align myself with that idea, and then came all the other heavy metal bands, all the names, we all know them, and of course also some side names, because I also was always very fond of, okay, there's like the big names, but there is a huge ocean of amazing musicians and bands, and I've always been trying to kind of catch up with that too, because that was a lot of inspiration as well.
I gotta just retouch on what you just said about how you thought about it like a game, because that goes into the whole mindset aspect of it, where it's all about perspective. And I think when you force certain kids, it could go either way. I mean, I know a couple elite professional guitarists that did have their phase of being basically forced into it. I mean, but then they learned how to love it. At the same
Yeah,
time, it goes the opposite direction too. And then they just, as soon as you can drop it, then you just drop it if you're being forced into it. But if you felt like it was a game and it was a little bit more of a playful and connection, that's awesome that you were able to think about it that way. And I think that's what probably allowed you to keep going with it. That's nice that you
absolutely.
bring that up. And I
Yeah.
did read something in your bio too, which was interesting, that it said that your TV went out at some point, and your parents didn't want to purchase another TV. So I mean, it sounds silly, but I think that's a huge factor that could have played a determinant role into that.
Yeah, imagine I was around 8 or 7 or 8, I don't know. I remember back in the days watching films and stuff, cowboy films and humor films, comedy films with my family. The typical, Friday night, Saturday night gathering on the couch watching movies. But other than that, we were always a very active family in the sense of creative. My mom would take a lot of time to be with us kids and to be creative, and also my dad on the weekends. So we would always go out. Basically our spare time was going out, having walks in nature, doing things. So the TV wasn't like a center thing in our family anyway. But then one evening, I remember, that television went like just image gone, and then they just said, what, we're not going to replace it. And I think they didn't buy another TV until I was 16. So that whole time, that was precious, precious time, you know, between 7 and 16. Come on, that's like almost 10 years of focusing on life in a different way, which was very different from the average kid, maybe just doing the same thing, consuming all whatever was on TV. And I had enough TV in my kid years and teenage years. I would go to a friend's house and we would watch shows, whatever. But
Yeah.
I think that was key element. I wasn't that distracted, so I really, was I could dive into the music, which was so fulfilling, and music being a path that is um, eternal. It just never ends, so I think that was a very nice thing. And I performed for the first time on a real stage when I was 12. And before that, some of my um, in kindergarten, they had me play a little bit, and some of
Mhm.
my elementary school teachers, he would let me maybe once a month or so. He would say, okay, on Friday, bring your guitar, and just before you guys leave home, you can play for 10 minutes, because he knew I was playing, so he gave me that spot. And but then my real first stage performance was when I was 12, and that was also a thing. I was very nervous, of course, but I had this experience where I saw that what I was doing was connecting with people. People were applauding, and somewhere there is a video on VHS. I don't know where that is, but I remember the scene. People applauded, and I stood up, I bowed, and I also applauded them, because it was like a cycle that happened. Reciprocate, kind of give and take cycle. And I think that was also a very, very powerful experience. So I base my career on those momentums of experiences, which, if you connect with them, they are the biggest teaching moments, I guess.
Exchange of energies between the audience and the artist. That's what I was just talking about that with somebody the other day. That as an artist, we have to bring the energy first, and then it's nice to receive that energy back and just keep on interchanging throughout the whole evening.
Right, right.
In terms of guitarists, aspiring guitarists who are kind of looking at your trajectory, how did you structure your practice? I know you said it was a little bit more of a game when you were younger, but when you became a teen and you were getting a little bit more serious into this, did you have a routine, or was it still a little bit more loose spaced and just on the fly, or did you have a strategic plan every day, like when you were practicing between rock and flamenco and the different palos and exploring more of the flamenco?
In my case, it wasn't maybe like a strategic thinking, but it was a nonstop commitment to playing. Of course, there were moments of the day or of the week that I just focused on playing certain technique exercises, because there was no other way around it. I soon enough saw that, of course, if there's no technical skills, I wouldn't be able to play the things that I wanted to play. First of all, I wouldn't be able to play certain repertoires by the big maestros, which I started to learn, Sabicas or Paco, or all the
Hmm.
great flamenco players, which that's like the reference you had. And so you needed to have a solid technique. Of course, in flamenco music, and that's what I always teach in flamenco music, in order to play flamenco, you don't need to be necessarily a virtuoso. Because if you learn the basic chords, you know the rhythm, you know the scale, you can play very simple sounding melodies, but if they're nicely played, that's absolutely flamenco, and like flamenco tradicional, right? But my idea was to become more of a musician type of guitarist, where you would play compositions, and then I had always my own urge to compose and to play things of my own. So actually, the thing is, being connected with your instrument, so to say, 24/7. That's the important thing. Of course, you have to fit in practice, but there was a lot of playing, because once you figured out a nice melody or a piece, if you play that over and over again, that's your you're practicing everything. And I've always kind of focused on. I was never a fan of, okay, I have to play 1 hour picado, 1 hour arpeggio, 1 hour this. This is something that my mind wouldn't understand. I'm very structured, but that type of like structure wasn't my thing. My thing was play nonstop, play nonstop. If there was something that wouldn't work, take that little thing and work on that precise scale or that precise technical thing. And then somehow my way of improving was, I think, much faster than just sitting there and playing picados the whole day. I would play and play
Right.
and play.
Would you say that you were a fan of using phrases from pieces to turn them into exercises?
That came later on when I realized that actually what I have to practice, because one thing is practicing mechanisms. Okay, that is very important. The more accurate and the more agile and the more smoother, the smoother and the more perfect your mechanisms are, the better everything will sound. But basically, a mechanism only becomes something if it's a part of the music. And my love was always for the music, not for the mechanism. So I knew that all my mechanisms had to be as best as I could possibly be, but they had to serve the music because that's what I was striving for. And so I would take, like you say, musical extracts, little phrases, little patterns, and just play those over and over. And instead of just playing mechanical picados, I would just take a picado of alegría and play that in 100 times with the rhythm and just play that picado over and over until that was in my fingers, because I knew that when on stage I would play that one. Because if you just go chromatic stuff just for the warm up, that's great for warming up, but you will never be able to play like maybe a nice run of like a scale, like a real scale. People have to understand that if you exercising means exercising, that means elevate your skill, the sensitivity of your fingers and agility, accuracy. That is the mechanism. But then you have to practice all those within a musical context. So I would do that. And finally I would end up play and doodle, so to say, but doodle with an intention, but by repeating phrases. And I think that was very interesting because kind of your curve of um, improvement is more exponential. It's different because you connect right with the musical phrases and with the music you want to play, rather than saying I can move my fingers very fast but I still can't play a music piece.
One of the themes that it seems like I hear from a lot of musicians like yourself that have had their phases to really grow in that period of time is just a type of a obsession, like a healthy obsession with the instrument. Otherwise, I don't think you can spend that amount of hours with your instrument.
I always mention that in when somebody asks me, I say learning an instrument, you need to have a capacity of being with yourself for many hours, and that's a good capacity. That means that you can kind of leave the world outside and you can be confronting yourself doing something. There's people, they don't have the patience or the strength to do it, or they don't even they just don't are you're not aligned with that kind of work. But I think if you want to learn an instrument and to take that into a towards a level where you start feeling, okay, I'm going to express something. And again, I always say it's never about, if you want to become like a virtuoso expressing guitarist, that's great because you decide so and then you work on your skills and you become that. But I think it's always good to know what you want to say with your instrument. There's so many, and I haven't. It's not me who says this. Other guitarists have said that in interviews. It's always important to kind of know what you want to express, and then you achieve the technical level that allows you to express that. So we have a lot of different
Right.
examples in the guitar world of guitarists who are super virtuoso and play amazing music, and there's guitarists that are very, very simple players, but they also do amazing music. So I think the focus has to be on a on a different level. It's always more, what am I going to express, and then align your technique with that. And every decision will be fine As long as you're backing it up with your personality, with your intention, with the music you love, etc.
Yeah, I think that's an awesome point because whether you're looking at rock music with somebody like Eddie Van Halen versus Santana, for example,
Hmm.
both different ends of the spectrum. I mean, both great guitarists. Obviously, Eddie just was on a different level of virtuosity, but Santana just is all about playing that one note and just
Oh
giving you
yeah.
that feeling. And same goes for flamenco too. When you compare players, anybody from the top end of the virtuosic spectrum to somebody like Moraito, which everyone knew. I mean, I would equate that a little bit like the Santana grooves, where he would play less, but with such feeling, and his rhythmic playability was really something.
And they all have something in common, which is their own tone. No matter,
Yeah,
you will say, this is Moraito, this is Santana, this is Eddie, this is Steve Vai, this is Jeff Beck, this is Paco, this is, that's, and I think, um, because at first, and this is also maybe nice and interesting for aspiring guitarists, at first, your reference is your idols or the music that you've been exposed to. So that's your reference.
right.
So you say, I want to become that. I want to play that. And so you spend the first part of your path of becoming a
Hmm.
guitarist trying to copy something, which is good because that gives you a reference to work on. But soon enough, you have to recognize that you will never be that, right? And you have to recognize it in a healthy way rather than feeling frustrated about not achieving that certain particular style of playing, but connect with it from a different angle and say, okay, I always tell my students, don't copy your idols, learn from them, because if you copy, you will be always a copy. But if you take elements of those guitarists and you play them in a way and you fit it into your own melodies, then of course people will say, "Oh, that reminds me of," but it will be never the tune of. And that is a beautiful thing. No one invents nothing. Really, everyone is just based on knowledge, and then we take it a step further, or just play it more personal. And
Right.
so I think that takes a lot of weight off the shoulders, because what you want to achieve, the earlier the better, is to find your own voice. And other guitarists like Steve Vai and people and other people, they speak a lot about this, and it's true, because an instrument is just a vehicle for you. It's me, and then there's this filter that is that instrument, and then I have to express with it. And
Right.
the sooner you connect with that idea, the more weight you take off your shoulders, because you don't have to pretend to be something that you might not want to be or cannot be due to whatever reason. But being yourself sometimes is more difficult, because it seems like we are very shy to expose ourselves. That's why we hide behind things. But we hide behind those material things. So just be yourself, and it can take a little bit longer in some cases. Some people connect with it when they're very young. You have people like Jimi Hendrix. Basically, when he was 16, he played already like 2 days before dying. So there's like these amazing artists that pop up. They're just already, once you know them, they're already. Ingwie Malmsteen, when he was 18, I mean, he already was on that crazy level.
Right.
So these are people, they connect with their own persona and personality. They've connected very early, so it's just a matter of finding that.
Yeah, I think it's one of the hardest things to do as well, to find your personal voice, because you, like you said, we're all aspiring to sound like one of our idols at first, but it's something that at the minimum we should just be aware of, that we don't want to just try to replicate them. And like you said, sometimes it's just a question of we're never going to be able to play like certain artists. Maybe it might just be because of technical ability, but it also just could be we're not that person as well. We're all individuals, and if we all play the same 20 guitarists play the same song, it's going to sound a little bit different. I mean, we're all going to have our own
Sure,
personality into it. So
sure.
at least be aware of it.
Yeah,
Definitely.
absolutely.
I wanted to bring up, I've noticed you're very passionate about showing lessons and teaching. And I saw that you're going to do a flamenco camp coming up in a month.
Yeah, it's going to be in May 13th to 17th. So there's still time. I know it's a little bit, last minute. We kind of threw the information out there, but there was no other way to fit it in. And I wanted to do something before summer. And so whoever is able to come, of course, welcome. It's a full immersive flamenco experience where people come to Malaga, to my hometown here. And there will be two of my band members, a singer and a percussionist and a dancer. They will come to the workshop as well, be part of that. So people will be able to connect with the fundamentals and the basics of flamenco, which is to show them, you don't need to play the bulerias of Paco in order to consider yourself a flamenco player. If you understand the structures and you have like basic melodies and you understand that and you can work a little bit on your technique, you will be, I had last year the students immediately, they were already playing Soleá Alegría, and they said, wow, I'm accompanying a professional dancer. So this course is for that people have the real experience. What is it to play with real flamenco artists, and having me guide them through that process, and of course do some guitar related stuff, and then some dance and singing accompany, and all that in a beautiful city in Andalusia, and also have access to the culture here and the lifestyle. Which, if someone wants to learn flamenco, that's like an additional thing that is nice to experience at least once in a lifetime.
There's never going to be anything like immersing yourself for a week in Andalusia, just immersing yourself, like you said, with the culture, and then also working with a singer and a dancer and qualified mentors like yourself. Nothing like the real thing of immersing yourself in the culture and the music.
Sure, once you already are into the flamenco and you have some knowledge, it's just an additional thing. Of course, I'm also launching my new FGM flamenco guitar online method, which is also like a full immersive program where I take people, I transform people from 0 to 1,000, whatever it is. Because even if someone doesn't know how to play, I tell them how to grab the guitar. I show them even how to take it out of the case. So it's such a complete method for beginners, for medium, and for advanced. And everyone, all the levels have access to all the videos. So I'm not even splitting it, because I want people to have. It's like an encyclopedia, where people have access to the material. And if you're on the beginner level, well, take it easy and you start with that. But you already know that you don't have to unblock levels if you want to sneak in and see what's happening at the other level. So I've just launched this, 2 3 months ago, and that's why I'm doing all these online master classes.
Okay.
First of all, to teach people values and very interesting things, and then of course also to introduce them to the FGM method, which is probably right now the only complete and transformational method in English out there, because I've seen that there's so much amazing stuff, like you said, but then it's not structured, it's not organized, and this is in one place.
Mhm.
It's in English. It's, the transformation is just amazing. The people who are in the program, I have all ages and all countries. One guy is from San Diego. He's 72 or 73, and he started off as an online student some years back, and then he joined the program, and he's like, man, I wish I would have had this 50 years ago, because it's really, normally when people teach you, um, and I'm talking now about the flamenco, what I've seen online is, there's great stuff out there, no doubt. But there's one thing that was lacking, and this is something that I put emphasis on in my method. Normally, people say, "Okay, you want to learn picado? Take this exercise. This is the picado." Well, no, but there's like a whole step before that, before being able to play a exercise, the physical thing about what to do, how, from where, why, angles, what you have to connect with on a feeling, physical, sensational level. So there's so many aspects that really make the difference, because otherwise all those people who have been swallowing up all those contents all those years, they should be on another, like, an amazing level. And I encounter many people, they're not. They still struggling with the rhythm, still struggling with the technique, still struggling with not knowing what the patterns are, what the styles are. And I thought, you know what? I have to share that with the world and with the people, because if we get to make the guitar flamenco guitar community much stronger, much smarter, and raise the consciousness and raise the knowledge, that is just like a rocket that will go off, and then more festivals will happen. It's just, not only dance, flamenco dance in the festivals, but have the guitar come back to a place where it should be, and that's my personal mission with that as well, and to make people part of this, besides helping, of course, the people to transform and reach their dream, which is like becoming a flamenco guitar, if you want to become a flamenco guitarist,
Yeah,
right?
that's an amazing mission, and I love what you just said about some of those problems with like somebody who's just practicing picado aimlessly without looking at the root problems, instead just working out exercises, because I feel like that was one of the things that was holding me back for years. And actually, like halfway through my journey, or up to even 5 years ago, I realized I still had some mistakes that could have been fixed a little bit. And unfortunately,
Mm,
some teachers, some mentors don't care about fixing it. They're just like, here's a 5 more exercises, work on these. And
yeah.
it doesn't matter if you have 100 exercises, but if you just work on one exercise and you're doing it properly. I mean, one of the last people who helped me out, Grisha Goryachev,
Hmm.
he just made a really subtle adjustment on my hand. It was just a little tweak of something I never realized, of just tilting the angle a little bit, and it made all the difference. And it started
Fantastic.
to really enhance me. The only problem is, once you get used to something, obviously it takes more time to recorrect.
Yeah.
And in the long run, it's worth it. But better if you could nip it from the beginning than waiting years down the road. Where can people find your method?
I'm always, right now, I'm in the phase of launching it. So I'm doing these launchments where I invite people to a
Okay,
webinar, to master classes.
sure.
So everyone who is interested, be aware always on my Instagram. And I just opened a Telegram channel,
Okay.
so people can access that. I will put all the links in my bios and everywhere. I will be sharing that now. Everything just started. It's very fresh. I've been working on this method the
Okay.
last 3 years, of course. It was really intense, so I've been recording all that material really nicely, and and very methodically. I mean, the way everything is explained. And the cool thing about this is there's no sheets, no tabs, no nothing. I really said, let's do it the old way, the traditional way.
Old school.
I'm sitting here, and if you want, watch the video 1,000 times. Don't get distracted by looking at the sheet or an additional video or an additional whatever. And at first, many people say, "Oh, but I'm so used to getting all those extra things." Well, maybe these extra things are the ones that are, uh, you know, kind of putting the focus somewhere else. So it's a different method, and I think it's interesting. So please, everyone who is interested, in my Instagram, that's probably where I will be announcing, and then you can join the master classes. You will see what I do, and then I'll present the FGM.
Yeah, sounds great. No, I'm excited. I'm going to drop into one of your workshops just to check it out. Could you tell us just what you have coming up? Any exciting tours that are coming up? You mentioned the tour with Hans Zimmer and his production coming up in the fall.
That show is called The World of Hans Zimmer, and that is another show that Hans curated. They just started to do a spring tour, and but with a different cast. So this year they do one cast in spring, and then the next cast will be touring in autumn, starting in October, November, December, and I will be part of that one. It's just going through, well, just it's through all like major cities in Europe, and that's great. I'm really happy to do that tour again. I love the music, and I love, of course, Hans's work. And you always learn so much while being out on the road and playing beautiful music. So that's that project, and then I have my own shows here in Spain. There are some shows in Germany and France also coming up. Then I have my guitar camps, in May, the one that is here in Spain. And then there is another um, guitar camp in June, which is only guitar related. It's a different format.
What area do you feel like you get the most fulfillment from at the moment? Is it teaching, being on tour, or just playing in your hometown, doing a little bit more traditional flamenco?
I've always enjoyed everything a little bit, you know. Of course, I love going out and touring. This has been actually my whole life like that. My main focus has always been touring with different projects or my own band. So this is something I really love doing. I just love being on stage and feeling that, transmitting and connecting and just getting the music out that you've been preparing for a while and just get it out and share it. I love that. But here, at home, for example, I play a lot of electric guitar. People think that I sit here maybe just playing my flamenco guitar, but it's funny. Funny enough, I play a lot of electric. Thing is also that all those last decades, I always have played electric guitar, but I've been focusing so much on. There was this whole world music phase, you know, where I took all the ouds, the bouzoukis, and all those Mediterranean instruments like to a very nice level of expression where I was working a lot and composed a lot. And I toured with one of my world music bands for 14 years and the whole flamenco thing. And I would always have the electric guitar there and play, you know. But somehow, some years back, it started with the in 2020, you know, when the tours stopped and all the activities that we knew stopped. And then I spent for the first time in many years, you know, in decades, I spent again a lot of time at home. So I said, you know, just take that as an opportunity to connect with things that you really like doing. And I said, you know what? I'm going to raise again my level of electric guitar and bring it to a level where I feel comfortable and where I can feel, you know, okay, this will take me to another place. And I started to work on Joe Satriani songs, Steve Vai songs, just, you know, songs that I've always loved, but I've never worked on them. So I said, you know, just start this way with something that you know is somewhere in the back of your head. It gives you inspiration to go for it because I didn't find myself just sitting there playing, you know, technical stuff. I needed to have music. So I started off, you know, some songs, whatever it was, the summer song or the crying machine or bad horsey, and what I would do is take the main structures, main melodies, and then whenever solos would come, I would, you know, understand which sections of the solos were played in which positions, you know, but then, of course, coming up with my own stuff, you know, just to have a little, a different approach to it and to kind of find my voice. And then it took me to compose some instrumental electric guitar songs, which at some point I will be releasing and so, yeah, I like to play a lot of electric guitar at home. Of course, I play a lot of flamenco too because you need to keep the chops. And I want to record another album, so I need to focus again. You know, it's not easy if you are so multi-layered because you kind of how you to put everything under one roof. You know,
For some of us, I think we feel like just to learn flamenco can take more than a lifetime to delve
sure,
into all the rhythms and get to the level of technique that you want and so forth. So to see somebody like yourself that not only dabbles in a couple styles, you actually perform at a high level in different genres is it's an amazing feat. And it doesn't sound like you're a flamenco guitarist playing rock or a rock guitarist playing flamenco. I truly think that you do an amazing job in both genres. So big props to you for
thank
that.
you.
No, I just
Yeah,
got to mention. I heard on the electric note. I got to mention that one of my favorite posts from you a while back was hearing you play a buleria on the electric, and the way you translated it, you just translated it exactly how a buleria should sound on an electric. You were able to capture the essence and do it on there. That was pretty cool.
that's cool. I remember that. I remember that video. And it's again, it's never about a collage. The thing is, you know, when you make a fusion, in many occasions, what happens is that you just bring two musicians together and both just play their own style, and somehow, because it's played at the same time, well, that's the fusion, you know. And but I think real fusion, you know, that is like a jam, like a great thing, you know. Real fusion comes when you start to understand the core of each music style you're playing, and in this case the heavy rock, the you know that kind of shred rock style. I know it, you know, I know how it is. I just heard it and I've played it for so many years and then mixing it with flamenco. So I know where to find the balance to never lose the taste of one or the other and to make them be complementary. So I think it's important to know in my case at least, I've been learning so many repertoires and music styles, and for me it was never just, oh, grab the flavor and put it in. No, if I want to have like North African traditional music and play it on the banjo. I want to play Middle Eastern Oud high level compositions. Well, I learn it, and that's how it was, and I committed to that. I think I just had a nice lunch here in Malaga, and we were talking about, and I was thinking about the five important elements that are key to just grow. And one is, first, is passion towards whatever you do, and you can apply this to anything. Really, it's not just music. Passion. Then you develop a commitment to it, and then you need the discipline. And then the discipline is one thing, but you need the constancy. And after the constancy, you need to apply the joy. Because if you don't apply the joy, all that becomes a very frustrating thing. So, and like one without the other doesn't make sense. And we agreed on that these five elements, so to say, are very interesting and very powerful elements that when you apply them, of course, takes time. You need more time to dwell into each of those realms of concepts. But I guess at least give it a thought, and then kind of align with it step by step. Nothing is immediate, and there's still so many things I have to learn and I want to focus on, and it's a continuous learning process. And again, when you gain certain knowledge, apply it, use it, and enjoy it. And that's a driving engine. People say, "Oh, you're so lucky because you did this and that." Well, no, whenever you were out having a drink in the bar, maybe I was in here playing and playing and playing. And people don't see the work behind, because it's very nice, the fancy lights, the cool social media, the posts and everything, which are the end result. And so it's really just deciding, take action. You want to do it, and there's no excuse. If you have an excuse, then accept that excuse, understand that you're excusing yourself, but then don't pretend that, oh, why didn't I reach, or what didn't I do? And I'm talking on a level of learning. I'm not saying where we are on a level professionally or on the career. That is something that happens, in life. Eventually you just do things and life takes you, the career takes you where it has to take you. But it's more on a satisfying level of what have you been capable of connecting with and doing on your instrument.
Yeah, no, I love those 5 things. A lot of people ask about what leads to motivation. How do you stay motivated? And it took me till almost the middle of my life to figure out that you can't wait for motivation all the time, because sometimes you just don't feel like it,
No,
and you can't wait for feeling like doing it. You don't always feel like playing, you don't always feel like picking up the guitar, or whether it be working out in the
sure.
morning, but the more disciplined, thus the more consistent, the more you feel, get that momentum, you're proud of your progress, and then you get motivated by yourself, and that's the true motivation, for at least for me. That's what I figured out.
No, I can't agree enough. It's like the small steps. you know um, every coach will tell you, take small steps. Don't try to eat the elephant in one bite. And it is really like that. At first, when you're younger, you want to have everything, but then you realize that you really need to take it step by step. And small successes, and many other people have said this before, small portions of success, adding them to each other, will give you a big chunk of process, and success. And by achieving little jumps of success, you are avoiding that feeling of frustration, because frustration will block you, will make you quit, will make you think you're not worth it, will make you disconnect with what you're doing, disconnect you from your passion. So small steps of success, focus on them. Then you feel, oh, I've accomplished this. This is amazing. Okay, I know this. Let's move on. And so you need to be a little bit of a strategic mind on that level. So we're coming back to that strategic thing we were talking a little while, a little earlier. So it was never about the way I practice, but what and how I practiced and what for. And those little things I have managed because I would make a lot of mistakes back in the days when I was younger. And but then one time I decided to do it in a certain way, change things, and that's when things really started to change and to happen and to to flow. And this is something that I always also teach in my method and in the master classes, and because it's things that I apply and they work. Nowadays I don't need many days of warm up for a concert, because I have a mindset, I have a confidence, I know what I'm capable of. And of course, I prepare. Of course, I do. But sometimes there's so much pressure before a concert that maybe I get 10 minutes on my own before the concert to sit somewhere only. And those 10 minutes or 5 minutes or whatever it is, in festivals, sometimes you don't get 5 minutes, you know? So you need to have a mindset, you need to have a tool, preparation that can make you switch from 1 second to the other into a state where you are absolutely calm and from which you start to deliver. I'm not saying that this will be the best performance of your life, but you at least you start from a ground where you say, okay, from here I can take it. I can control this. I'm not like a chicken without a head running around and oh my god, I don't know how it's going to be this concert and well, just take it easy, enjoy. And if you visualize that you're going out and you're stepping out into the living room of your own house, just kind of that idea, and then okay, there happen to be some people in the audience, but a very, very smart sound technician many years back on tour told me, you know what? We will never do our best show and we will never do our worst show because every show is like, oh, this was worse than the other one the day before, or oh, today was much better than yesterday. So it's really just take it one step at a time. Each day is different. Each day you just focus on delivering and enjoying. And it sounds easy and esoterical and whatever people might think, but it's very simple. So the parameters of immediate success with what you do are very simple, but you have to apply them.
No, I love it. A lot of people don't think about the whole mindset aspect, and that's one of the reasons why I like to bring it up on this podcast. And it sounds like you're fully aware of being aware of your own mindset to prepare for these types of events and strategize for your whole career in general, and especially to teach towards aspiring guitarists, which that will it's a huge aspect of if you're going to continue playing or give up on the instrument. I know we could keep on going forever down this topic, but I've taken up enough of your time. I really want to thank you again for being on here. For me, it's been a treat to hear about your journey, hear about your insights, the mindset, and all your little stories behind the scenes. So it has been very interesting, and I think a lot of my community will appreciate it as well. So
Thank
thank you,
you.
Amir.
You're so welcome, David. I really like the idea that you reached out and, just a transparent approach. It's great to have people like you in this guitar world committed to share with other people, to make other people see different options they have. And because in this world, generally, there's so many beliefs that are not true, right? And so many beliefs that won't help you to accomplish what you want to do. And they start off with education, they start off with society, and whatever, right? So um, I think as a final note, um, and I'm just saying things that I've heard. It's not me saying this, but as a nice message, enjoy what you do. Grab the guitar. Whenever you grab the guitar, be conscious that you grabbed it and that you're going to play. Is it two notes? Great. Is it a million notes? Also great. But just that consciousness of grabbing your instrument and kind of not hearing to all those voices about you cannot do it, you're not good enough, you're too old, you blah, blah, all these things that we all had at some point in our head. Just try to get rid of them. It's not easy. It doesn't start tomorrow, but you can start today in at least acknowledging and saying, okay, I'm going to address that differently. And then things will start to change. And so I'm really happy that you gave me the spot here for you and for the community. And it's just great. Thank you so much.
On that note, Thank you so much. In the show notes, I'll make sure to put some links to your upcoming events or your website so they could look up more information and hopefully find out more about your course and your workshop in Malaga as well.
Okay, thank you so much.